as I'm here toiling away in the early hours. While most people sleep, I choose to wake up and forego sleep and work. A lot of people ask me, why do you work close to 300 hours a week? And I simply tell them, because I'm looking to buy more synthesizers. And nobody out here is giving me synthesizers. So that leaves me one choice. To work my peach fuzz butt to the bone so I can build that generational synth wealth. Now you might be asking yourself, what is that generational synth wealth? What's this term that has been sweeping across GearTube? Is all these other producers, influencers are making these clickbait videos telling you, oh, this is why I've sold these synthesizers. How G.A.S, gear acquisition syndrome, is toxic. Oh, buy less gear, make more music. Have you ever noticed that there's just an absolute avalanche of people trying to make you feel guilty about your passion? You know, I was thinking about it last night. You know, I was lying in bed. I probably, I was like, man, I'm going to clock in about 3 hours sleep tonight. But you know what? I only sleep when I absolutely have to. You know when I sleep? I sleep when I'm sick, or I sleep when I'm absolutely exhausted to the point where I can't friggin' move. That's when I sleep. And you know what I'm doing when I'm not sleeping? I'm planning how I'm going to buy my next synthesizer. And right now, I got about 3 synthesizers coming. I got about 4 more on the way. And I got about 6 or 7 in my head that I'm getting ready to buy. And you know what? If you want to buy synthesizers, don't use your credit card. Work. Don't put them on layaway or whatever you call it, or payment programs. Because that's when you start to feel guilty. When you put a synthesizer on a payment program and then you're stuck paying that debt off every month, that's a loser's game. Get out there and work for it, and then get the money, and then you go buy it. And then there's no guilt. And then you don't have to listen to all these gear tubers telling you, gas is so bad. I spent, because that's what happens. That's what happens. These cats get given synthesizers for free, and then they tell you to feel bad and get rid of yours and buy VSTs. Now, there's a lot of people out there that like VSTs. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's a virtual synthesizer technology. I think that's the term. And you got a bunch of people out there being like, man, all you need is your computer and a MIDI keyboard. Yeah, that's fine. That is all you need. But being involved in the synthesizer game isn't about what you need, okay? It's about what you want and what you got to do to get it, all right? So that's what we're here for today. We're here to talk about the idea of being synth blessed, all right? The idea that you deserve more, not less, okay? You deserve more. You deserve more than you got right now. And you know what? Yeah, you might not have room for it, but who cares? Who cares if you got room? You buy it, you keep it in the box. I got about 6 synthesizers at the house right now, still in the box. And you know what I do? I walk by those boxes and I look at them and I'm like, someday you're going to make it to the big leagues, baby. I walked by the Boss RC505 the other day, in the box on the floor, and I said, you ain't ready yet. RC505 looked back at me and it said, all right, coach, I'm ready when you are. And I was like, all right, just keep You're not ready for the starting lineup. All right? The starting lineup in my friggin' synth team is legit. You know, they're honed. They've put into work. They know how to play together. RC505 ain't ready yet. And as a coach, I'm not going to bring somebody onto the court who ain't ready just because everybody's telling me, why you still got that thing in the box, man? Because it ain't ready yet. But you know what? When it is ready, all I got to do is reach down, bust open that box, crack out that RC505, and guess what happens? Instantaneous 10-point synth blessed upgrade. So that's how we're doing it. I got stuff right now that as soon as, if I need to bring in a pinch hitter in the setup, I can whack it in right, no problem. So this is my point. When you got all these jabronis making you feel guilty, it probably stems from two things. You bought something you couldn't afford, and you're listening to a bunch of wankers tell you how to feel, okay? So just remember that. When you're listening to a video on YouTube and somebody's telling you how to feel, I guess that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm telling you what not to feel, okay? So I'm not telling you how to feel. I'm telling you what not to feel. That's the difference. I'm telling you what not to feel. So when you're listening to these jabronis and you're actually listening in a state of active listening and not of like being lulled into a type of weird programming that makes you feel guilty about acquiring things that enhance your life, then you got to say to yourself, you know what? Screw you, man. I ain't listening to you. I ain't feeling guilty. And this guy's trying to make you feel guilty. And in the backdrop of his video, what's he got? The cat's got about 200 friggin' synthesizers right there. And he's like,
Gas is a condition that can ruin your life. Gas is a condition that hinders you from making music.
why is it always about making music? You know? Do you think a bunch of Indians sitting around a campfire, chanting or doing whatever they're doing with a bunch of feathers on their head, are looking at their buddy and being like, hey, Chief, how come you're not making more music? Why aren't you in there on the deer pelt and with the ink of the red ochre writing out music? Why are you just standing around the campfire with all of your people making sounds? You know what the chief would say? He wouldn't say nothing. He would just keep doing what he's doing and not listen to the voices trying to suppress your desire to just friggin' enjoy sound, enjoy your hobby. You don't need to feel this pressure to make music. I mean, what do you think? You think you're Dr. Dre? You know what I mean? You think you're Vanilla Ice? No. You're just a cool cat who likes synthesizers. You're just a cool cat who enjoys sound. That's what you are. Because I had this dude write me the other day. He goes, Samurai, you got too much gear, man. When are you going to start making more albums? I was like, bro, what are you talking about? I don't have enough gear. I'll never have enough gear. You know when I'll have enough gear? When I'm dead and I can't buy no more. That's when I'll have enough gear. And hopefully by that point, I'll have built up enough generational synth wealth to leave these beautiful machines to another person in a trust, and I'll put it into trust that they ain't even allowed to sell them. You know? So when I hand down my generational synth wealth, it's going to be in a trust, and it's going to say, you know what? You can't sell these. These are in the trust now, and you can't ever sell them. But you can use them, and whoever gets them might be pretty pissed off, because they might have spent a few years listening to all the wankers on YouTube telling them that, less is more. What is everyone trying to be, a friggin' Buddhist monk? Less is more? When has less ever been more? Because the weird thing about that sentence is automatically, you know what it does? It turns into a split brain. And I coined that term in 2020. It turns you into a split brain. And what happens when you turn into a split brain? You hold two opposing ideas in your head at the exact same time. So just think about that sentence. Hey there, synth enthusiast, less is more. And instantly you're like, oh. And it makes you ponder. You're like, less is more. Okay. Instantly in your brain's like, less isn't more. That's like, less is the opposite of more. So how could less be more? It can't be more. So what happens is it turns you into a split brain. And when you turn to a split brain, you end up getting paralyzed, you could become suggestible, and because they gave you an illogical sentence or statement that now you're pondering, what happens is it opens up a portal in your mind where you become instantly suggestible and hypnotized. So whenever you hear one of these sentences that are basically split brain activators, like less is more, fat is beautiful, nothing wrong with fat people. Some of my best friends are fat. And sometimes I think people look better fat than skinny. You ever see a fat person who lost a ton of weight? You're like, ooh, brother, ooh. Fat is beautiful. And then see what just happened. You thought about it. You're like, wait a minute. Fat is beautiful? It's not beautiful. Fat is just fat, okay? Fat is just fat. It's not beautiful. It's just fat. And some people look better fat. I got a friend who was like 350 pounds. And the bro was the jolliest looking cat you could ever imagine. He was like, to be honest, the chicks dug him. They were like, this guy's a teddy bear. He wasn't fat where you were like sloppy fat. He was just like, what we would call burly. Not so much fat. And chicks loved it. What happened? Dude went and lost 200 pounds, okay? Now he's $150. And it's a problem. It became a problem because now he's trying to live the skinny life and he's still internally got the hunger. So you know what happens? Depression sets in and you're like, damn, I just want to eat that. I want to eat this. Some people aren't meant to be skinny. Some people aren't meant to be muscle men, So take it easy, man. Just chill, enjoy yourself. Understand that you've undertaken a hobby called the sonic arts. You don't have to be a musician. You don't have to friggin' put out albums. You don't have to get your crap up on Spotify, all right? You don't have to do any of that. If you're like me, I got about, right now, I'd say I have 33,000 songs in the friggin' kitty, ready to just go. But I don't care. Because now, these days, I'm just enjoying sound. Just like I always have. I just enjoy sound. Sometimes I just like making sounds. And if it turns into music, cool. But like, the point isn't to make music. The point is just to enjoy the sounds and to let all these crazy frequencies and timbres and everything just like cut through every cell of your body. And then when you leave, you know what I like doing? I like getting in the lab, getting in the spaceship, cranking it up to you know what, throwing on the cans or the monitors, whatever you're into, and just friggin' going for it. And then at the end, you know what? You leave the room and you're almost vibrating. You ever have that feeling when you're done making sounds or music or whatever? But I say sounds. When you're done making sounds and you come into the room and it's like every cell in your body is now been friggin' activated and you're vibrating. You run downstairs, your kids or your missus are there, or your husband or whatever you're into, and you're like, sometimes your missus will look at you and be like, have you been drinking? I'm like, no. And by drinking, do you mean creating the wildest sounds the world has never heard? And she's like, I guess. And I'm like, yeah, well then, yeah, I've been drinking. I've been drinking the Sonic Tonic for the last 6 hours straight. I don't even know where I was. I was so lost in the friggin' soup. So that's my whole point of this whole thing is like, stop having people tell you you gotta make music and make albums. If that's what you want to do it. But don't be like, oh man, I got this gear and I haven't put out an album. Listen, man, you're not Jimi Hendrix. You're not Jim Morrison, you know. Your dad wasn't the captain of the boat that got sunk in the Gulf of Tonkin, okay? Where then suddenly your father was involved in one of the biggest false flags of all time, and now you're in the band Doors that turns into one of the biggest bands of all time. Pretty good favor for paying back the dad who was involved in one of the biggest false flags ever, right? It's pretty cool, isn't it? What do you think, Jim Morrison just kind of got famous out of nowhere? No. His father had to do one of the most atrocious acts in, let's just say global history, but definitely American history. It ended up getting us into the Vietnam War based on a false flag. And then suddenly what? Jim Morrison's dad's like, mission accomplished. And guess what happens? Friggin' the clowns in America, if you know that acronym, suddenly go and take over the music industry in Laurel Canyon. And you get this crazy movement coming out that ends up pacifying all the hippies who were against the crazy war from the get-go. I mean, isn't it just super convenient? So nah, you're not him. You're not Jim Morrison. You're a guy who works his ass off, has a family, has responsibilities, and the last thing you need to do is feel guilty about taking some of that sweet cheddar that you've been cultivating for the last however long and going out and buying yourself a piece of equipment, cash, that's going to bring you tons of enjoyment. You're going to go feel bad about that because there's some wanker on YouTube who's like, oh yeah, you know, you should feel guilty about buying this gear because gear acquisition syndrome is like a it's a thing that can really ruin your life, you know. This can really ruin your life, you know what I mean? This type of gear acquisition syndrome. And it's like, nah, it won't. It won't ruin your life at all. It's just not the way it's not the way it works. It doesn't ruin your life. It makes your life better. You know what ruins your life? Listening to people you don't know. That's what ruins your life. Listening to people that aren't in your trusted circle trying to tell you what to do. You know, you got these cats telling you to sell your gear and buy friggin' VSTs. I mean, is that not the craziest thing you ever heard? That's like someone telling you to like sell your car and just friggin' take a taxi everywhere. It's probably even worse than that. It's like telling you to sell your car and then not even take a taxi anywhere. Just get a friggin' simulator and watch people take a taxi everywhere. That's what a VST is. A VST is for someone who sells their car and then buys a video game and then drives around in the video game. That's what a VST is, all right? And I don't care what anyone says. You can argue with me if you want. A VST is the same as selling your car and buying a video game where you just drive around virtually. That's what a VST is. And some people love it. I don't love it. I got no time for VSTs. Zero time. I barely got enough time for anything, so I definitely don't have time for VSTs. So, we'll see. Some big changes are coming, man. Some big changes are coming down the pipe. I don't know if you guys can feel it or not. I definitely feel it. I feel the poop winds of change blowing. And a lot of people are going to get covered and not going to know what to do. And what are we going to have to do? We're going to have to walk around with some sanitary napkins, cleaning up a bunch of fools who weren't prepared for the poop storm. It's going to be like, oh, you guys never heard the poop storm was coming? And you're like, no, I didn't hear. Then you're like, all right, let's get you cleaned up there, bud. And they're kind of like, what happened? And it's like, yeah, I know. Don't worry about what happened. Let's just get you cleaned up first, okay? So that's what's coming down the pipe. And I'm excited for it because I'm excited to see what ends up happening with it. Let's see what's going on. Who's here? You soon will can gig. Find a better way. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really care too much about it. I got a lot of people write me emails. The funniest thing is when people tell me to make music. I'm like, dude, what do you think? Like, when I'm doing stuff, you think this is all I do? They're just like, you need to make more music. What they're really saying is, do more of what I want you to do. They're like, let me control your life. Like, I want. It's like, nah, man, I'm doing my thing. How about that? I'm doing my thing. And you know what? The majority of the time I'm doing my thing, you don't see it. So take it easy. So you go make some music. What are you talking about? You think I want to talk? You think I'm like trying to get on Casey Kasem's top 40 or something? No, I don't think so. But I just want to. I don't know, man. I'm just kind of like, the content these days on YouTube is boring. It's weak. I know Behringer's doing a bunch of upgrades to their internals, and they're about to really drop a tsunami of synth content that's going to probably blow everybody's mind. And I'm excited for that because you know what? Maybe this is a lesson that when Behringer isn't in the game, then things are a little more boring. And everyone's starting to notice now, you know. How many friggin' overpriced TE-05 Take 5 modules can the world handle? You know? How many friggin' $1,700 modules can people get excited about? It's beyond me. I have no idea. I find it just wild and weird. So Behringer's coming with some big hot news soon, and I'm excited about it. And it's going to be very cool to see them back in it. And with the upgrades they're doing to their new factory, the automation they got going on, they got about 10 or 11 cents on the friggin' what do you want to call it, the chopping block or the production block? So that's exciting to me. There ain't much more exciting than that, to be blatantly honest with you. So that's what I'm feeling. That's the vibe I'm feeling these days. So anyways, I got to roll, man. I got a little more work to do. You guys take it easy. That's a little morning. We call this what? We call this the early bird gets the worm audio stream. Early bird gets the worm radio. That's what we'll call it. Early bird radio.